So I just finished Words of Radiance and I wanted to make this video where I go through my top 5 moments from the book, because it is undoubtedly some of Brandon Sanderson's best work that he has done or will do. And there's so many moments that make your jaw drop that I wanted to just go through them. And you need to let me know whether you agree with my list. And I'm almost certain that you won't put at number 1 what I've put at number 1. So let's get into it. At number 5, we have Adeline kills Sadeas. This is right at the end of the book, and it caught me by surprise. At the end of the book, we have Sadeas gloating about the fact that he doesn't care that the universe is at stake, or the fate of the world at least is at stake, and he's taunting Adeline, as he's done for the duration of the book, and lets him know he's going to try and bring down Dalinar. And how often do we see our hero that is shackled by codes of honor that won't allow them to take action against an enemy who isn't shackled by those same codes? And this time we see it the other way around. Adeline sheds the codes and oaths and the laws of his people and murders Sadeas in cold blood in front of us. And it is amazing for a few reasons. Number 1, it caught me by surprise. I thought they were just setting up Sadeas as a villain again for the next book, but this was so much better. Number 2, what it does is it's the cherry on top for Adeline's development arc in this book. So Adeline goes from a noble who is a good man, I believe, but he's very naive. He doesn't bear the responsibility of his position, and he looks to his father to fix all issues. He cares more about other people's opinion of him and dueling and those frivolous things inside of society. And really, he's part of the people that his father doesn't despise. He doesn't despise his own son, but knows is causing the Alethi kingdom the issues that it has, rather than being one conjoined nation driven towards one goal. And Adeline goes from that person throughout the book, with different things occurring, to a leader of men and somebody who will do what has to be done for the good of the nation and has a real code of honor. And that's why that's placed at number 5, because it was awesome. So in at number 4, and I think this would be a lot of people's number 1, is honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do. This is such an iconic moment, not just in this book, but I think in fantasy. Like, I think it's well known by anybody who's read this that it's just such a cool line for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because honor is dead. Honor is the name of the shard that was the Almighty, which is one of the shards on this planet, and he is dead. The vessel is dead anyway. I don't know the ins and outs of what's going on with the shard because we're not there yet, but the vessel who held the shard honor is dead. So honor is dead, and Dalinar has had visions with the Almighty and knows that. So that's a really cool first reason why that line is as dope as it comes. The second is because it precedes one of the best and most satisfying fight scenes that you will read in all of fantasy. A 4 versus 2 shard, plate and blade, shard bearer battle for the future of the Alethi kingdom. And it does, by the end of it, it has such a big impact on the power swing in the Alethi kingdom, because they receive 4 full sets of shard and plate, or it might be 4 full sets of plate, 3 shard blades, and 1 massive hammer, if I remember it correctly. But fantastic scene, fantastic line, belongs in a movie somewhere. That's my number 4 pick. Number 3 is Kaladin's arrival to battle Zeph in the final battle. The reason this is so good is because a few reasons. Number 1, Kaladin has been very mopey, down, depressed, and has lost a lot of his powers for the course of this book. So knowing that he's arriving in full strength after watching him battle and muddle through the chasms and different battles with like Moash and those sections without any of the powers that we know he has was very frustrating. So now that he's arrived and he's full power, we just know it's about to go down. So that's one of the reasons it's exciting. The second is exciting is because of some of the descriptions of him arriving. I'm going to have to read the notes here. Like a falling star, a blazing fireball of light and motion. And then he says this when he brings Dalinar, because Zeph sends Dalinar up to die. That's our assumption anyway, because that's what he's been sent to do. So he lashes him upwards, expecting that when the lashing finishes, gravity will kill him. When Kaladin lands, he says this, and I'm going to have to read it again. He says, "You sent him to the sky to die, assassin. But the sky and the winds are mine. I claim them as I now claim your life." Come on. If we thought that the line before, "honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do," was cool, like that is, this line is arguably even more cool, and it precedes maybe a better fight this one does between Zeph and Kaladin. So that's my number 3. Number 2 is Nightblood's reveal. There are a lot of references in the Stormlight Archive that the other worlds in the Cosmo exist, more than I noticed in Warbreaker and Mistborn. And we haven't had a main character or artifact outside of Hoyd, who is obviously an exception because we have no idea what he is or what he's about, but we know he's as old as the shards themselves, most likely. This is the first time that we have one of those artifacts or characters pop up definitely on another world. And it opens up so many questions. The first question it opens up is, who brought Nightblood over here? It must be, unless it was Hoyd, but I feel like he would have held on to something as dangerous as Nightblood. It must be a character from the Warbreaker world, which I think is Nalthis. Which one was it? Where are they now? How did they get it here? And how can Nightblood not only be invested with breaths, but also be an honor blade? Or that's what the end of this book would have me believe anyway. Nightblood was such an interesting artifact in Warbreaker. Its personality, its weird logic as to what it had been asked to do, which was destroy evil, and then the powers that it has. But probably the best thing was its dialogue. And one of the reasons this is so high was it brought a massive smile to my face. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to talk to someone about it immediately when he said, "Would you like to go and destroy evil?" But I'm very much looking forward to probably the strangest character in this series so far, which is Zeph, who's about to go on hopefully a redemption trail with one of the strangest artifacts across any of the Cosmere that I've read so far. And the dialogue between those two is going to be fantastic. So this one was an amazing moment, but also for what it meant going forwards, that's why it's so high. Before I go to number 1, I have a couple of honorable mentions that I want to throw out there because they nearly made it onto this list, and they were fantastic moments in the book as well. The first honorable mention is Kaladin and Syl's reunion. This was amazing, and I separated this from obviously him coming and arriving in the final battlefield because they were separated. It was so satisfactory, especially when the Stormfather said, "A daughter disobeys," because there was a bit of time between then and Syl arriving back with Kaladin, and you just know what was going to happen. So the anticipation made that really exciting. So that's definitely an honorable mention. Another honorable mention is Kaladin and Shalorn connecting on their brokenness. And I feel bad because I feel like Shalorn should have more moments inside of this top 5. In fact, she doesn't really have any moments in the top 5, but she's in a couple of these honorable mentions. But she's just such a good character throughout the book, and she doesn't really need a redemption throughout this book. Like she's so grateful for the powers that she has and what direction her story's gone in based on her past, which was miserable, and we learned all about it in this book. So she's just a good egg, and she really is a catalyst for Kaladin's growth. And when Kaladin notices that Shalorn has that brokenness inside of her, but she smiles anyway through the pain and through the despair, like that was really a big turning moment for him, and it inspired a lot of change. And I thought that was, worth an honorable mention because at the time I didn't realize how important it was, but that really is the catalyst for what happens to Kaladin moving forwards. How could we not go forwards without mentioning that Lopen becoming a Radiant? So honorable mention, Lopen becomes a Radiant. I can't think of anyone that I would be more excited to see become a Radiant than Lopen. And he immediately tries to find someone to stick onto a wall. So you go Lopen, honorable mention. Another honorable mention is when Kaladin understands that Elokar is Dalinar's Tien. And it's just perfect. It's still in that period of time where he's trying to figure out why he should save Alokar and why it's the right thing to do. And I have to give it to him. That was a great moment. My final honorable mention before I get into my number one moment is Shalorn strangling her father and singing the lullaby from when she was a child. We all knew that this was going to happen because we knew that she killed her father. And it was the pain of those flashbacks I felt much more acutely than the pain I felt from Kaladin's flashbacks. Like the story of her killing her mother and then her father trying to protect the daughter that he loves so dearly, taking the blame, shouldering the blame, and having that eat him up from the inside and really turning him into a monster, because his death had to happen. Like, he was such a monster by the end, but you just can't help but feel pity for the man and his good intentions, or what seemed like good intentions. Obviously there's a lot more story to come. And the poetry of her singing the songs that he used to sing to her when he rocked her to sleep and her putting him to sleep was just, it just wasn't lost on me. I thought it was a very poetic ending, very emotional, and definitely deserved to be on the list. So my number one moment isn't so much a moment, it was an entire chapter, and it is when we learn about Taravangian's diagram and his deal with the Night Watcher. Now, I made a video for this interlude on its own, and this list is purely based on my opinion, but I was so excited when I read that. I read the interlude twice because I knew there would be so many clues in there as to what had happened and what is going forwards. And I just love this type of character. And there's a few reasons why I'm putting this at number one. The first reason is it really gives a lot of credibility to his skill set so far. Like, it did have me wondering at the end of the first book, how on earth is this guy pulling strings like this and masterminding it? Like, it just seems a bit out of character, and he could be acting, but this makes way more sense. Number two is, what else has he done and what else is he going to do? What was the extent of his intelligence on the day when he drew this diagram? And I, for one, love these characters. I love these characters that are highly intelligent and are able to see how the universe around them is affected by choices and where to push and where to poke and where to prod to make things change. And you see this in different books and movies, and I always love this character. For example, in Watchmen, the movie, I can't remember his name, I think it's Adrian, but one of them is super intelligent, and essentially he's pushing the world in the direction he wants to end the Cold War. But he does it in a way that is extremely logical and ruthless and doesn't allow for empathy for the others involved, the small people involved in the story. You also see this in a series I read as a kid called The New Heroes, and there was someone called Victor Cross who was doing something very similar. And these characters, they interest me so much. So that's part of the reason why this is number one. Mainly because I wish I was a bit smarter and I could, have a understanding of where my choices push me going down the line. I bet we all wish we were a little bit smarter, but yeah, they just really intrigue me. It also is because of what it means moving forwards. So moving forwards, we know that Taravangian's goal is, on paper, the same goal as our main characters, as Dalinar, as Kaladin, as Shalorn, and the rest. But the way he goes about it, I'm going to guess, is going to be very different and probably doesn't take into account the little person. It's also going to be very complicated and interesting to see what else he has already got set up and how that's going to change the world moving forwards. Another reason is when the plan goes awry, and he said the further they've gotten from the day that he made the diagram, the more things have, not gone to plan, which makes sense because he's guessing more into the future. No matter how intelligent you are, there's so many things happening every day that can change it. How is he going to make adjustments to this plan? Where is he going to make adjustments, and how efficient are those adjustments going to be? And one thing that intrigues me is, it was pretty much alluded to that he will never wake up that intelligent again, but will he wake up almost that intelligent again on any day? And are we going to be there for that? because I would love to see Brandon Sanderson's interpretation of that from Taravangian's point of view, to get an insight into what Brandon Sanderson think that mind looks like. And finally, on my wish list moving forwards, and I've only gotten to this book so far. Next, I'm going to read Elantris, and then I'm going to jump into Oathbreaker. I would love to see a conversation between super smart Taravangian and Hoyd, because I'm firmly of the belief that Hoyd can see and understand and knows where to poke and prod, not necessarily see the future, the same way Taravangian can't see the future when he's super smart, but has a clear understanding of what will happen if this and that happens, because he's always in the right place with important people having the right conversation. So a conversation between super smart Taravangian and Hoyd, and a battle of wits, so to speak, because obviously that's Hoyd's given name in this world, that is something that's on my wish list moving forwards. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 moments. What order would you put those in? Is there anything that I missed? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and you can also support the channel by becoming a member. Thank you for your time. I'll see you on the next one.